Hello guys, I'm John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and just a heads up, I got sick over the weekend, so I'm apologizing for my voice sounding a bit weird, and I'm trying to keep the coughing to a minimum, but just so you know, and don't get irritated while watching this video. But okay, now, let's get to what we're here for. Mr. Robot, Season 4. We're at episode 7, which means we're halfway through the final season, which would probably also explain why this episode is something a bit special and also a bit longer than usually. So, as always, first couple of minutes are going to be spoiler free, and then I'm going to give you a warning when I'm jumping into details for the episode, so let's go. Okay, so like I said, this episode is a bit special. It's sort of like a half season finale. It's also 1 hour long this time, so a bit longer than the usual runtime. It's quite special also in the way it's shot. Like, it feels very, very different to basically every other Mr. Robot episode. This is not a classic Mr. Robot episode. Already visually, you can see that it's shot very differently. It's designed very differently. I mean, the characters are the same. Like we are with Elliot, obviously, and Vera, since Elliot got picked up by Vera in the last episode, and with Krista as well. So with those characters, but the whole style, the music, everything is very, very different. It feels very much like we're watching. As you will notice, I don't really want to give it away, but just like a heads up, it feels very much like we're watching, I don't know, a play or opera or something like that. So it's a very, very, very dramatic episode. You will see that in the style of the episode. You will see that in the way they're doing the the editing, especially the sound editing. I thought was very good and very dramatic and emotional in this. And yeah, I don't want to give it away too much what they're doing, but yeah, you're definitely gonna pick up on it. And I have to say, this is one intense, emotionally intense episode. There are gonna be quite some big reveals. Obviously this is spoiler free part, so I'm not gonna tell you what kind of reveals there are, but they're very, 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 very heavy and very much game changing. Like, when you finish this episode, you're gonna look back at the episodes you've watched until this point and be like, I'm not sure if I still see everything the same way. It's that kind of reveal we get in this episode. Apart from that, it's obviously also a very emotionally intense episode because Vera is there. He's very, very intimidating, and you're constantly on the edge of your seat no matter what happens, because you just can't predict what is going to happen. And I do believe that it goes in an unexpected direction, not just towards the end with the big reveal, but also throughout the entire episode. And once again, I also have to just call it the acting. The acting in this episode is so amazing, especially from Rami Malek and also Christian Slater. Just Christian Slater was so great in this. I'm gonna get into a bit more detail in the next part, but yeah. Also, the music was very, very, very good in this. Like I said, some good sound editing there. So yeah, I think you're definitely going to enjoy this episode. Like I said, it's a bit different, but different in a very, very good and very engaging way. And it definitely sets up some very, very intense, I'm going to say very so much in this video, it sets up some quite intense, emotionally intense stuff that Elliot will have to work through in the remaining 6 episodes, I think. So, lots of stuff to look forward to. Okay, so that's it for the spoiler-free part. I'm going to jump into spoilers for the episode now, so if you haven't seen the episode yet, turn the video off now. Okay, I admit it, I cried. I cried so hard. I felt so bad. But we're gonna talk about this in a couple of minutes. I want to get some other stuff out first. Just letting you know that, I literally finished this episode 10 minutes ago. I'm still very emotionally upset about so many things, especially that ending. So, yeah, let's talk about some other things first to maybe calm down just a little bit. Okay, so I already mentioned it. This episode feels very different. It is very, very different. Like the whole style of this, the way it's filmed and being presented to us, it's unlike any Mr. Robot episode we've seen so far. It feels very much like a feature film. I'd say it's also longer. I don't know if that's because it's like the half season finale, but also because like I said, it has this feature film style. Like the editing is slightly differently. Also, the music is a bit different. Like I said, the music editing especially is very very good. I thought like it helped a lot with intensifying this feeling of being on edge the entire time, and I liked how at certain points the music stopped and then picked up again, like especially when Vera was talking in the beginning and he starts rambling about all this dramatic stuff, and you have this like very on edge string music or whatever going on in the background, and then it stops for a second the moment Vera starts trailing off a bit about some weird stuff, and then it picks up again when he goes back into the dramatic story. Like I like that. It's some very good use of music right there. It's a bit hard to pinpoint like every little detail that was different, but the whole presentation style of this episode was very different, felt very different. But I liked it. I liked it. It was unusual, but in a good way. I'm not quite sure if Sam Esmail is just trying to show off how many different styles he can do in this season, because almost every episode feels a bit different in style or in genre. Like especially this episode is, I mean, it's right in your face with Act 3, Act 2. I can't count today, I'm sorry. But you know what I mean. It's very much like theatre, like opera, the drama in this, the drama, which also again goes along with the music. Everything just feels so big, so dramatic, so operatic. Like I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm just wondering why the hell is Sam Esmail doing it like this? I mean, I like it, especially as a film nerd. I'm like, yes, give me all that different cinematography stuff. I love analyzing that shit. But you know, at some point you're just wondering, is Sam Esmail just showing off? Just being like, I can do this, this, and this. I'm good at everything. I mean, he is. He is rather good at all that stuff. Yeah. So I like the different presentation style. They're not gonna stick to it. At least I hope they don't, because I like the usual cinematography Mr. Robot has going on. But you know, it very much felt like, okay, this is what Mr. Robot would be like if it were a feature film directed by Sam Esmail. Like this is what it would be like. And let me tell you, I would totally watch a 2.5 hour movie directed by that man in that style. Especially the camera work was quite nice as well, like with the transitions. For example, in the beginning when we're with Elliot and Vera in the living room, and he's asking about where Krishna is, and you know the camera. Oh no, he's actually asking. Like Vera's just talking, and the camera starts moving away, and you're wondering where the hell is the camera going? And it like goes over the ceiling, over the middle wall between the rooms, and we move into the other room. Then we see Krista there tied to a chair. Like I love the kind of camera work that's going on there. The editing, once again, was very good, and again, different, but different in a good way, which just goes to show Sam Esmail can do things differently, but they're still very entertaining to watch. Also, adding to that praise Sam Esmail already gets from me in basically every review I do, which also goes along with like this slightly different style that is like similar to theatre, to a play. The writing, the dialogue, so good. Mwah, absolutely gorgeous, because this very much feels like a play, not only with the Act 1, Act 2, but we're only in one setting the entire time. We're basically on stage watching these characters being in one place, and they can't go anywhere, and they can only interact with each other. And I love how you can not only see but also feel the dynamics and the chemistries among those characters shift in every act. Like the first act is very much controlled by Vera. He's in power. He knows what's going on. He talks almost the entire time, And as soon as he makes Mr. Robot appear, Act 2 starts, and Act 2 belongs to Mr. Robot entirely. And you immediately realize there is a power shift right there. I absolutely love Act 2. When Mr. Robot came out and started talking, I was like, yeah, take Vera down. You could just immediately feel this sort of power shift going on there. Vera wasn't necessarily feeling intimidated, but you could very much feel this sense of, okay, this is someone different. This is not the shy, socially anxious introvert I'm talking to anymore. It's Mr. Robot, and I love how you could feel that in the acting, in the way it was presented, but also very much in the way the dialogue is written throughout this episode. There's so many moments where you just want to listen to what's going on, even though they're dragging it out so much. Like, especially the ending before the reveal, which we're gonna talk about. Don't worry. But like, this whole reveal takes, I don't know, I don't want to say 10 minutes, but it takes longer than it normally would. I'd say, if you were to watch like a normal film or something. But it's acted and written so well that you're hanging on to every word that's being spoken, to every action, to every gesture that's happening on screen. And that is so amazing that you have a show where you want to listen to every single word, even if it's a bit slow, even if it's dragged out. If the TV show can keep you on the edge of your seat, even though an explanation that would normally last 1 minute maybe is being dragged out for almost 10 minutes. That's just perfect, or nearly perfect television, and I absolutely love it. Also, before we get to the big reveal, I already mentioned it. I absolutely have to praise the acting this week once again, but especially Rami Malek and Christian Slater. Like, I know I praise them almost every week, but especially this episode. Oh my god, that acting was so good. Like, I already mentioned Act 2 that belongs to basically almost entirely to Mr. Robot. I just loved Christian Slater going at Vera. It was so entertaining to watch. I love how he was able to take command of what was going on, and how vulnerable and even scared he got towards the end when it's going towards that reveal, where you actually realize, oh shit, Mr. Robot is actually scared. He's not necessarily scared for himself, he just doesn't want Elliot to know this. The acting from Christian Slater there was absolutely fantastic. And then what I love about Rami Malek is, not only is he able to do this kind of cold, detached thing that is happening more often with Elliot, which I absolutely love, when Elliot just stares down someone. Like, Rami Malek is really good at being kind of sort of badass in that way. But yeah, as soon as it starts getting to that whole therapy session, and I love how, like, the emotional shift is slowly happening there. Rami Malek acts this so well. Like, how it goes from, okay, we're in a bad situation, but I'm trying to help you, just keep talking. And then that moment he slowly starts picking up on, oh, we're actually talking about something different. What are we talking about? Let's just go there. And how he tries to talk to Krista, but also has to talk to Mr. Robot. I love that. Like, that shift was so good. And yeah, when it comes to the reveal, like, the last 20 minutes or 50 minutes of this, the way Rami Malek acts himself through those very, very tough moments is absolutely amazing to watch. Like, I already told you, I cried so much. And I easily cry when I watch stuff on my own, I'll be honest. When I'm on my own watching things, I cry very easily, especially if the person on screen is not only my favorite character, but acted so brilliantly. Like, that just gets to me, It just gets to me. And the pain, the hurt, like, the tears on his face when Elliot breaks down, like, that's just, the man won an Oscar for a reason, Just Rami Malek is so freaking amazing, and I love him, and I love this show, and I love that he, in such moments, gets to shine and show how much he can do. Okay, and once again, let's talk about the final minute of this episode, because, once again, the finale of this episode kills me. Why does every finale of an episode of Mr. Robot kill me inside? Okay, so we have a therapy session, which I already thought, how is this supposed to work? If Vera and his henchmen are sitting around. But, they're kind of trying to make it work, and he has sort of a plan because he's read the files and everything. And I already mentioned that I just like the emotional shifts and the dynamic shifts that are happening in this quote-unquote therapy session. It's a very good scene. And yeah, I absolutely love where it's going in a narrative sort of way, because, I went through so many emotions and theories during this scene alone. That's what I meant when I mentioned that they're dragging this out, but you hang on to everything. Because they dragged this out so much in such good, thrilling, dramatic way, I was like, oh no, this happened. Oh no, did this actually happen? Hang on, that actually happened. Like, I went back and forth so many times throughout the past couple of minutes of this episode. Like, as soon as I start getting to the whole event of Elliot and Darlene being in Elliot's room as kids, and I must admit, I didn't really... I wasn't so sure what happened. I was like, okay, so we know that Elliot at first believed that his dad pushed him out the window, but then that didn't actually happen. Like, Elliot himself jumped through the window or something, like he wasn't pushed. And I always thought, okay, what happened? Did he sort of try to kill himself as a kid? I don't know, and that was sort of a traumatic event. Like, he didn't really know, we didn't really know, no one really knew. And, well, we unfortunately do know now what happened. And okay, let's slowly talk through this. Okay, so Elliot was scared because he heard his dad coming towards his room, and he pushed Darlene into the closet because he wanted to hide her for some reason. And he started, when his dad came in, he became angry for some reason and started trashing things and then jumped out the window. Like, that's what we knew. But the question always was, okay, what actually happened? Why did he jump out? Why did he get angry? Like, why did he hide Darlene? What was going on there? And I thought, okay, while we were having this conversation, the therapy session, I thought, okay, Elliot probably had a switch during that moment for some reason, because as we kind of realized, Mr. Roll has maybe been around longer than he's let on, because that gets revealed in a very intense back and forth between Mr. Robot and Elliot, which I liked a lot. I liked watching that, because I like it when stuff gets cut in between a normal conversation. I kind of enjoy watching that sort of thing, and it's becoming apparent that Mr. Robot, it has been around longer than Elliot might have already known, because he keeps having not the correct memories of things, or he can't really remember them at all. So apparently there have been switches going on in Elliot's childhood already, which is why he can't remember things properly. And obviously that's already what Mr. Robot is kind of worried about, Elliot finding this out, that he might have been around longer than Elliot actually knows. That's sort of a problem already, but that's not the worst problem. The thing is, what there's slowly getting down to is, and this is going to be quite heavy, but if you watch the episode, you already know what happens. Elliot slowly starts to remember as Krista asks him, do you remember why you got angry with your father? And he sort of slowly starts realizing, yeah, I think I know why I got angry. And she asks him, did your dad ask you to do things? And the moment I saw Elliot's face, I mean, I already got the hint a couple of minutes earlier. I was like, oh no, God, did he get hit? Did he get abused or something? But, as soon as Krista asks that question and you see Elliot's face, and he starts breaking down with the tears and has a panic attack, you realize it's really that bad. It is really that bad. And, yeah, it turns out Elliot got molested as a child. And I cried so hard. I'm like, no, come on, really? Why? Like, yeah, and I know that the idea is usually comes from some sort of childhood trauma, but you usually hope it's not that thing, and now I guess we reveal that he was molested by his dad, which is already bad enough, but then you realize, oh, his dad is the guy we've seen for almost 4 seasons as the other main character we sorta kinda liked. It's that guy. And like, brilliant. I don't know if I can ever rewatch any kind of episode without thinking, you look like the dad who molested Elliot as a child. That's bad. So yeah, that obviously also explains for multiple reasons why Mr. Robot didn't want Elliot to know this. I mean, for once, Mr. Robot takes on this classic role of the protector in Elliot's system. When you have the ID, there's usually this sort of protector identity, and that's very much Mr. Robot. As he says, I'm here to protect him, that's what I do. And his role is to protect Elliot from the trauma that originally caused the DID. And that went so far that Elliot wasn't even fully aware, or not consciously aware, of what the actual trauma even was that caused the whole DID to begin with. And, Mr. Robot wants to shield him from that, he wants to protect him, but then, he also probably is aware of the fact that he looks like Elliot's father. Someone Elliot has always usually been very fond of. The dad has always been the nice parent in the family. And, it's clear why he doesn't want Elliot to know that. And as soon as it comes out, in a very cool moment, I thought, you could see Mr. Robot's face fall, and he's like, I can't protect you anymore. And we see him leave the scene, and we don't see him anymore. So, I'm wondering now what that means. Because, personalities don't just usually go away like that. I don't think he's integrating. That's usually when, and I know I'm not a professional on this, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Integration, the idea is usually when a personality either sort of disappears or usually, I think, merges with another personality into the system. So I don't think that's what happened here. But it might as well be that the Mr. Robot identity is going to disappear for a while, in Elliot's subconscious. He's not going to disappear fully. I don't think that's what's going to happen. But we might not see him for a while. And if he shows up again, or if Elliot decides to talk to him again, it's going to be rough in so many ways. I'm not even sure I want to think about, to be honest. Also, for a moment I thought they might talk about the other personality, since Elliot doesn't remember everything and he thinks it's Mr. Robot who tried to hide it from him, which is probably true, but I also thought, was there maybe another personality switch hit going on? We don't know. It was probably Mr. Robot. Who knows. But also with Mr. Robot gone, who knows, maybe we might see some of the other personalities, or at least the other one, coming into play again a bit more. I mean, I just feel so bad for Elliot. I felt so bad for him by the end of this episode. I just, I wanted to hug him, but, I was just being like, I want to touch my screen, I just want to hug him, I'm so sorry. Yeah, at the end of this, because, again, he utters this very prominent sentence, I don't want to be alone, I don't want to be alone anymore. This is such a big tagline for Elliot, and I feel that, and I'm like, you're not alone, no, it's fine, it's gonna be fine, and then Vera comes in, and I'm like, fuck off, Vera, no one needs you did this to him, and don't pretend to be all sentimental now and be there for him. I know, when he sits down opposite Elliot, and he even has a bit of tears. I was like, oh shit, he actually feels sorry or emotional or whatever about what's going on, but it's Vera. I'm still like, F off. Which is why, a second later, when Elliot and Vera have this very short, emotional bonding moment, Vera just makes a very weird noise, and the camera moves back, and there's a freaking knife in his back, and I'm like, yes! Freaking yes! Because, sure, there was a bit of a sort of a emotional moment between him and Elliot, but I'm like, Elliot doesn't need him, he doesn't want it, Vera doesn't know shit. And there was Krista. Krista came in with the freaking knife and she stabbed him in the back, and it's blood all over his back, and he makes a weird noise and he falls over. I have no idea he's dead. It kind of looks like he is. I hope he is. But at least he's very seriously injured, and Krista and Ellie can finally get out of there. So, good! Good on them! So, yeah, I hope that's it for Vera, at least for the time being, because I do not like him. He makes me feel very uncomfortable, which once again was very evident in this episode, the way he was being all creepy and touchy with Krista, and I'm like, go away, which is why I was very happy when he got stabbed. And it also tied up this sort of very theatrical design of the episode, because he gets stabbed, very classic Shakespearean way, he gets stabbed, he dies, falls down, and then all the lights in the flat and outside go out, and the episode's over. Like, the play's over, lights out, show's over. Very good. Very dramatic. I like it. So yeah, that is the end of a very dramatic, very theatrical, in a literal sense, episode that had a reveal I was not prepared for, and I wasn't even sure I wanted to know, and I've no idea what they are going to do next week. It's going to be quite heavy for Elliot, and I mean, I guess this Deus group meeting is coming up on the same day. I guess that's gonna happen soon. I don't know, there's a lot of stuff Elliot has to work on. Also, there's still Darlene and Dom. I hope we get to see what's happening with them. But I'm honestly only worried about Elliot at this point. I want my boy to be fine, or at least safe. I made this sort of prediction a long time ago, back when I watched season 3 or something, where I thought, okay, the worst ending we could get to Mr. Robot is Elliot dying and maybe even committing suicide, and I do not want this to happen to him. I know it's, with Mr. Robot, and especially Elliot as a character with his mental illness and everything and all the shit he has to go through, I know it's sort of likely, but I do not want this to happen to him. It's gonna be tough for him, and I want to see how he will sort of work through this. Maybe he talks to Krista, since she's still there. Also, I hope they get out of this flight as soon as possible before the henchmen come back. Yeah, just a lot of personal drama, some very good character development in this episode, and I hope that gets carried over into the next episode. I just want to see how Elliot deals with what he knows now, who he's gonna talk to. I hope he talks to someone about it, because he should. And yeah, I'm excited, but I'm also quite worried. Okay, so those are my thoughts on this week's episode of Mr. Robot. What are your thoughts on this week's episode? Put something down in the comments below. Again, thank you for all the views on my previous reviews, and I love hearing from you, so put your thoughts down in the comments below. I love discussing all the theories and what your thoughts are on this very, very special episode, and yeah, what you think will happen next. Put something down in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done that already, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.